Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and we're excited to continue on with the next chapter. We are up to chapter 9 of Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings, entitled Damnation. I like how Brandon Sanderson uses what we could consider swear words, right, in our lingo. However, he does so in a creative and I think really tasteful way. I think what he wants to do is understand that people are going to utter out words of frustration. However, he's careful to keep it fantasy driven, right? We understand what he's trying to do, showing that these are real characters with real emotions and even real natural tendencies. However, I do think it would sort of blur the lines were he to throw a lot of earthly lingo into this story. However, using the myths, even the various religions and theologies of his stories, I think he adds depth to his characters and to his stories, showing that for centuries people have been using these words in frustration, in anger, and it just shows how ingrained the theology is, the history of these people. It's just one little subtle way that I think he accomplishes world building in a way that if it wasn't there and they were either using, let's just say, swear words from our world, from real life, I just think it would diminish it. So chapter 9, Damnation, again, we can see where he's going with that. However, in the context of the story, damnation is not just a word that you exclaim when you're angry. It's actually a place that these Rosharians believe exists, and they believe it's where you're going to go when you die. And life is a battle here, and damnation is going to be a battle then. Kaladin's going to bring it up in this chapter. But I'll begin with chapter 9, entitled Damnation. And Bridge 4 has the highest casualty rate of all the bridges. We're back to Kaladin. We've been with Shallan for several chapters, and it's as if time has continued on for Kaladin. It's not like we stopped the story the last chapter, pick it up immediately. No, time has been progressing, and he has made many bridge runs. And Bridge 4, statistically, is the worst. He's not really sure why their bridge crew is killed and maligned so badly by these Parshendi arrows. However, when he looks back on that first bridge run that he made many weeks ago, he and one other man are all that's left out of the 40 that were on that bridge crew, and they've cycled through several groups of bridgemen, so they're dying very quickly. Kaladin had lost dozens of bridgemen, gone on many bridge runs, and he struggles to understand, even with his brief militaristic background. Of course, he was elevated a little bit in Amaram's army. He doesn't understand the strategy. They go on these bridge runs when these alarms sound, and if a high prince's army that's not his high prince, Prince Sadeas, if another high prince gets there first with their army, Sadeas just turns around his army and goes back to camp. If Sadeas does get there first, wherever the Parshendi are at in these chasms, they'll march across, but he finds out that the purpose is not to destroy the Parshendi army so much as it is to identify these chrysalises, is what he calls them. And inside these chrysalises are gemstones, very large gemstones. And Kaladin has pretty much figured out the goal is to get there first, get the gemstone, come back to camp and celebrate. And early on in the chapter, we read sort of his frustration, just in the sense of why are we doing this? What is the point of all these men dying? However, he shuts that part of his brain down. He can't let himself, in his current state, get back to that mindset of purpose, of reason for living. And Kaladin didn't want to put much thought into the entire process because even the people that he's running alongside, old Kaladin, would have learned their names, would have tried to create some type of community. New Kaladin, he doesn't want to think about them. He doesn't want to get to know them at all because they're just going to die. And he feels like he can't take any more suffering, any more heartbreak. Syl is very bothered by Kaladin, right? She says throughout the chapter he hasn't spoken in days, and she always tries to just speak to him either in his mind or out loud, of course for him only to hear. And she's trying to encourage him. She's trying to bring him back, and he's drifting further and further away, actually so far as to there's one outlet that he is aware of that's in the Shattered Plains, and you can actually, there's one road that goes to one of the chasms where we'll find out later why the chasms and how that's going to affect the story, but there's a road that goes out and overlooks a very high chasm, and Kaladin described it. That is one area in which the bridgemen could actually control something. They could choose to take the road out to the chasms, but you don't walk back from that road. Essentially, you are jumping off the edge of that chasm, ending your life. There was one certain way out, walking the path to the chasm and never returning. On page 147, Kaladin says, "We exist to be killed if we're not dead already." So again, this is Kaladin. He is in a rough place, and we can't blame him, right? His life is one of death. His life is one of suffering and pain. And Syl, again, is working to encourage him. She tells him that she remembered back when he was in a previous army. She barely even, she struggles to remember even back that far. But she remembers how he was so energetic. He was so well thought of by other soldiers, his superiors, even the enemy, she said. That almost brings Kaladin sort of back to consciousness because he wasn't aware that Syl was around at that point. The first time he remembers her is, of course, in the slave wagon coming to the Shattered Plains. Well, when not making bridge runs, the bridgemen were used for brute force and essentially slave labor, hauling logs, chopping down trees, making things, cleaning things. And Kaladin and his bridgemen are in the process of dragging some massive logs and boulders even around to move them to different places. And they happen to come by Gaz, who's their leader, their sort of commander. I forget exactly what his rank is. I think it's not lieutenant. I don't remember. You can let me know. But they walk by Gaz, and he's actually receiving new bridgemen who have arrived. And Kaladin notices one boy who is younger, and he actually goes back in his brain a little bit and thinks that he knows this young boy. He just looks familiar. Of course, he shakes himself out of it and says, no, it's not Tien, the name that keeps coming up and up again. He says, because Tien's dead. Turns around, pretty much goes back to what they were doing. Well, sure enough, the next bridge run, pretty much everyone dies, even the man who was with him on that first bridge run, and this young boy also is killed. And Kaladin is just heartbroken. The boy was killed on the next bridge run that night, and this is towards the end of the chapter. Not a very long chapter, but one where we really just kind of experience and need to appreciate where Kaladin's at. He is broken, and he's been trying to hold it together, even being strong through silence. And that night, though, I wanted to kind of conclude with by reading the last couple sentences. Kaladin huddled in the barracks, listening to a high storm buffet the wall. He curled against the cold stone. Thunder shattered the sky outside. He thought to himself, I can't keep going on like this. I'm dead inside, as sure as if I'd taken a spear through the neck. The storm continued its tirade, and for the first time in a year, Kaladin found himself crying. And so Kaladin is truly broken here. I mean, so much that he's gone through, much that we don't even know quite yet. But he's gone through a lot. He's seen death after death after death. This chapter, entitled Damnation, is entitled that for a good reason. And so we will leave Kaladin here, and we'll see where we continue on in this story. Can things get worse? Hopefully things get better. We will find out. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying this read through. We're working through it together. Let me know. What would you do if you were Kaladin? What would be your next step, if I could put it that way? Let me know, and we'll continue on through Brandon Sanderson's The Way of King, Book 1 of the Stormlight Archives. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next video.